Hello, my name's Ian Leyland. I'm the Environment Art Director at Foundry 42. Today, it'd be really interesting to talk a little bit about Surface Outposts. So I think people have seen a few of these before. We've shown some little videos here and there, and when the communities come around the studio, they've had a little sneak peek. But this is the first real opportunity to really show what it's about, and more importantly, the team involved in making it.
So my name's Eddie Hilditch. I am the Senior Environment Art Lead.
My name is Alex Remotti, and I'm a senior technical artist working on the procedural aspect of our system.
Hi, my name's Nick Etheridge, and I'm a lead artist for the PU team for environments.
So the initial idea came from design. Design needed a place to bring the player to, the smallest possible location. So we have cities, space stations, but one thing we never really had is these smallest locations. So that was the initial idea from design of what a surface outpost would be. So we went away and we started looking at concepts for what they might look like in our universe. So we knew we wanted to integrate them quite well with the environment. So we wanted a design that felt durable, robust, and felt like it could survive a few harsh winters. So from there, we started some mood shots just to see and explore what might work right. And then once we had some nice ideas, we got it validated, make sure it worked for Chris and the design director, and then we started taking it into production. So from there, one of the things we knew we wanted to do, like these were going to be modular. We didn't want just one hero location. So the visual style and elements needed to support a modular format. So during the ideation process and concepting, we needed to make sure we had elements that we could, break up the visual language, break up that fatigue, and enable design to create some interesting layouts, which still felt quite interesting to look at.
So we build all our environments modularly. We have to build them in that way to incorporate the sort of vast number of environments we need across our universe. So once the concept has been signed off from Ian, we will start breaking that concept down into its constituent parts in order to figure out how many pieces we need to begin the process of making the brand new building set, which is going to be our high-tech surface outposts.
We took the concept and we made the outpost concept using the template set, which is a set we use to white box all of our levels, because it's a basic set, it's to metrics, it's got a simple material on it, and it's good for artists and designers and engineers just to block out areas and test with. So we took that, we modified it slightly, and started creating the outpost layout that we had from concept. Then we added we whiteboxed add-on pieces like the roof pieces, antennas, pipes, to get that extra silhouette read from a distance, mid and far distances. The biggest challenge was probably making sure that it's all modular and fits together, because the whole point of it being modular is it gives the artist the flexibility of many different layouts, of swapping pieces round and adding a bit of variation and detail. So from its foundation, it had to be very modular, work together to metrics, and have approval from design too. So the key things at the grey box stage are making sure that the assets are in line with the art style, that the material breakup's correct, the forms are correct, and it's still modular from what we were doing with Whitebox, that design have play tested it and it works for their gameplay requirements, and that any major performance issues are looked at as well. Often the grey box is modeled to a higher level of detail than the actual final asset. And this is because all the ideas and forms and details get shaped out of this phase, and these will sometimes get baked later on down to a texture. So often the grey box is actually a lot more expensive than the final form. So when the assets go into final production, at this point we'll flesh out the material library. So the material library will consist of simple, tileable materials with wear and dirt, such as simple metals, plastics, to more complex panels, to very detailed greeble sheets, trim sheets, and graphical decals, and illumination sheets for lighting. We need to make sure the materials work together, that they're all conforming to the correct PBR workflow, and at that point then we go into the final production and apply those materials and flesh out the final assets.
Once we started to test our outposts on the actual surfaces of the planet, we soon realized that a perfectly flat base was just not going to work. It was going to limit where we were able to place them. Planets don't tend to be perfectly even, everywhere we place them, we'd end up with a corner clipping through the ground or a corner floating above the ground. So we had to go back to the drawing board and kind of incorporate a system of legs and feet, which ultimately allowed us to place them in much more varied places on the surface of a planet. Then we obviously had to get the player from the surface of the planet up to the door of the outpost. We thought a ramp would kind of look really cool visually, so we started implementing those. But after talking with design, we realized our ramp metrics from them was 15 degrees, which is actually very shallow for a ramp, and we ended up with outposts that kind of looked like a Miami Beach house or something, because even if the outpost was only 3 meters off the ground, we had to have an 11-meter long ramp to sort of cope with it, and they kind of look ridiculous. So we went back to the drawing board. We thought, switchback ramps maybe, or some kind of complicated elevator system with ladders. But ultimately, simplest solutions are often the best. And we ended up with stairs, very high tech, but stairs actually turned out to just serve the purpose that we needed them to.
Once all the final assets were made, we basically grouped them together into prefabs, which are like smart groups, and brought them in. So there's walls, there's rooms, there's doorways and airlocks and the stair piece. So it's very easy now to make a whole different layouts of the outpost, instead of having to bring each individual asset and each light and each vis area. They're all prefabbed up. So you drop a room in, then you drop some walls in, and it's done. And it allows for more time working on the actual assets than world building.
We have the ability to recreate the concept pretty much one-to-one, which is great. But what we also have on top of that, thanks to the modularity of it, is the ability to create a vast number of variety of layouts. And we can basically make as many kinds of layouts within the same sort of theme and style as we want. And as we develop the building set more and it matures and we add extra pieces, that variety and the number of potential layouts we can create basically exponentially increases. What comes down the line later is how to add more variety. Like, we can't have just white outposts every time you see an outpost. It's not going to be the same outpost. It's going to change layouts. It's going to change materials. It's going to change what add-ons get added to it. That all comes later. What we have here is a proof of concept and a final asset in its simplest form, but with the ability to expand massively on it as we sort of move along with its development. Yeah.
So after the environment team has been in production for a certain period of time, that's when I'll start looking back into it with it again. We can visually see how the ideas progressed and we're getting some good ideas, but this is where I start introducing visual targets for the guys to work to. And from the process of going from the initial idea to it going through into production, obviously the team has made additional design choices and visual choices to improve the design. But then this is a good time to just take another look at it and seeing how it's working. So initially when I was looking at it this time, I saw the real importance of how we're going to integrate these things. So it's not only good to have beautiful architecture, you need that believability of understanding, actually this thing has been here for many years, and how does that feel? So what I did some visual targets for the team, looking at things like materials, lighting, particles, just to kind of describe that end frame. So working with what they'd already produced and the visual targets, that was perfect for the team to kind of take it onto the final art stage of production.
When I received these visual target, the first thing I try to understand is how those elements have been built, how are the modules been divided, and then try to build a less granular version of those model pieces. For example, a room. or a wall to cap a side of a room is what we call prefabs. So they are kind of Lego pieces. When we have defined these kind of rules within our small R&D team, we start building connection points and tag points to help us stitch together those pieces. We define design rules and layout paths to make sure that the generation of this layout is controlled, is based on a clear aspect, a visual aspect, and on a clear design, on a clear cap of size, and when we have all these rules, we start trying out and iterate on the process of giving a feedback to artists for having different variations or having a new rule set to stitch the things together in a different way. Once the goal is reached, what we want to do with these elements, with these outposts, is to create as more variations as we can, and then create a lot of perceived variation for the player, so that when we scatter them on a planet, the player can play and can see a lot of different location, a lot of different sizes, a lot of different vistas. At that moment comes a second aspect of the procedural variation, which is placing them on a planet. Also, in this case, what we have is our principal artist and our art direction working on giving a visual target of how they want the outposts to look when they are placed on planetary surfaces. So we have a lot of things like lightning, the planetary materials, the weather system, the aging of the outposts coming in as variables to set some defaults on the outpost. We have the surface itself that could be very even or uneven, and we need to make sure that the outpost is correctly placed. This has been one of the biggest challenge we're still tackling, which is how we can find a correct place on the planetary surface to guest our outposts. So sometimes we have a fit system adapting, which is one of the first solutions, but we also have a better shading system to integrate the fit on it, or we have a terrain system trying to adapt and trying to give a more clear and more even place for the player also to be able to enter into the outposts. We face problems with the access to these outposts, and we have tried to find visual and technical solutions for these. The Planet Editor is one of the tools we're using for placing them, is trying to find the correct average distance of this kind of outpost, finding a correct spot on the planet, and then giving to the designers a way to modify these settlements, because together with the outpost we will get some visual add-ons, which are just very nice elements that will give variation to these groups, to these outposts, and also some design elements. For example, a loot crate could be a design element that needs to go together with the outpost to give the gameplay. These elements get also variated by the Planet Editor by accessing some defaults or some design changes through time and through missions, which is what we were mentioning before, like changing in runtime the values of the wear and dirt system that could give, if the planet is sandy, could give a varying amount of sand on the surface of the outpost. We're looking into more aspects for interior and exteriors to be different. So the interior could have rust and dust, and the exteriors could have the planet affecting it with mud or the sand, as we said. We're looking into other variations as well, interior dressing with props. There will be probably a sneak peek on it. It's actually all the things you see from my side. They're still in R&D. They're clearly in a white box phase because the visual target we're trying to reach is very, very high. I'm confident that what we have reached is very good, but it's actually considered gray box on this title, which is incredible.
So hopefully you guys have enjoyed the piece. It gives you a good idea of where we're up to right now with the surface outposts and given a little introduction to some of the team members that's going into making them.